Welcome to the Kids with Big Emotions podcast. This is episode 106. We're going to be diving into when the quote unquote good kid isn't fine. So, this episode is actually coming because of some stuff that's been happening in our house recently. And I just thought it would be very interesting for you all to see that I experience this stuff as well, even though I teach a lot of it, that a lot of this stuff still does occur in my house as well. And hopefully, this will help you feel seen and heard and really be able to notice when we have these kids with huge emotions, but you may have another child as well that's quiet. Or some of the struggles that I am going to be speaking of, a child may actually have outbursts about as well. If you've got a quiet kid who seems to do well in school, doesn't care, or doesn't cause problems and always gets praised by teachers, you might be thinking that you're totally in the clear. But what if under that calm exterior, they're actually silently struggling? And when I'm going into my animal stress signs, that is a turtle. Today, I'm sharing the story that is personal, one that I honestly didn't expect to live as being an executive functioning coach, a coach for kids with big emotions, and someone who teaches this stuff every day to other people and works with other kids, that it's really my own son. And I'm going to go over how things unraveled and the lessons that I'm still learning from what we experienced over the last probably 4 or 5 months. So this episode will really help you see what often is missed in the quote unquote good kids, executive functioning, attention, planning, the emotional support that they need. Because just being smart, it's not everything. It's not just a free ride, and they can actually cover a lot when their stress sign is turtle. So this might bring up some guilt. I know that it did for me. And hopefully you'll hear how I almost defaulted to punishment, which is what I teach not to do, as opposed to using what I teach. And I just want you to know that we're all human. And with this awareness is where change begins. By the end of this episode, you're not only going to feel seen, but empowered, especially if your child has strengths on paper with the school, with everybody around them, but struggles with the stuff that doesn't show up in their grades. So, where do we start? In school, my son was in the gifted program. And the only reason that he came out to homeschool was because my other son was out, and we realized that he could go deeper maths and sciences, which he wanted. He's like, Mom, I want to do more math. I want to do more science. I don't do enough in school. And school only teaches grade level. They don't allow them to go ahead at their own pace. So that's why he left school and why he decided to homeschool. I was already homeschooling once, so I was like, sure, why not? And this was a child too that won the Silent but Deadly Award at school. He wouldn't speak up much. He doesn't talk a lot. He turtles, right? It takes him a while to answer questions. The thing is that the reason he got the Silent but Deadly Award is the teacher said that when she actually calls on him and asks him for his thoughts, his ideas, his answer to questions, they're always very deep, thought-provoking, really thoughtful answers. And I actually, once I did pull him from school, I got a call from the teacher, and the teacher that he was to have the year that I pulled him out. And she was saying that all of the other teachers talked about how much they loved teaching him. So the opposite of my other child, my other child who I was getting called all the time to come pick him up because he'd hit at somebody, yelled at somebody. This was total opposite in the child. Thing is, though, is that quietness in him, the one who listened to everything a teacher said, did everything he was supposed to do, was actually reacting out of a stressed state, which was the turtle. And I didn't know that at the time. So when a teacher said, get out your paper and do this work, he got out the paper and did the work. And all of the other kids too, because he didn't create conflict with other kids, he turtled all the time. Anything to avoid conflict, anything to avoid anything like that, that the other kids wanted to have him around. So once I pulled him out, I thought, oh my gosh, this is going to be easy having him after having my other one who had the outbursts, and I know exactly when he's stressing about things. And so for the first while with him homeschooling, I just gave him the courses and let him go. And then I started checking his work more, and I saw these cracks. He wasn't finishing tests. He was spending too long on wrong parts of assignments. And less on the parts of assignments that were worth like the majority of the marks. The time he was allotting to things was crazy to certain things. Less than half of his test or more than half of his test was blank. He would like leave things and not come back to it. And he would tell me that he was done things. And I found out later that he wasn't. The thing is that yes, he's smart, but executive functioning, that part of the brain that helps him with his time sense and pacing, that helps him figure out what to prioritize, what decisions to make in the things, how to start projects. So just even starting the work, how to monitor that he's on track, how to monitor for mistakes, how to self-correct when he has made mistakes. All of those are executive functioning skills. They don't have anything. They're very separate skills to do with your academic knowledge versus the way that your brain works and organizes and manages things in your day-to-day. This is often too why this misunderstanding, this way that school puts such a focus on the academics and not trying to figure out if any of the breaks in the academic side are actually that they don't understand the work and they can't do the work, which quite often does stem to why can't they do the work, often stems from certain parts of their executive functioning that may be struggling as well. But there's also this part of us that because at school, it's not being the focus. It's, well, they didn't do well on this, or they're not handing in their homework, or they're not putting enough effort into this or that, or they're not focusing on the right things. That's the things that we're being told. And then we go back into this old style of parenting. We go into this disappointment. We go into this shame. I totally did. I felt like a failure as my mom, as a mom, right? I sat there when I did this. And at first I was like, how did I miss all this in him? How did I miss everything? And I had to flip that in my mind and be like, oh, the school would have missed this too. They would have been calling it something else, that I'm actually so grateful that he's homeschooling. And now I'm seeing this. So now I know that how to address it and how to help it. That being said, I do help parents as well that have kids in the school system to be able to talk to the teachers and help the teachers get it and understand. And some teachers are totally on board and there to help and there to work with this and learn themselves. And some teachers are not. So I can give you enough skills and tools that we can try to see if we can get the support that you need from the teachers. We get this conflict though in us where we feel disappointed and shame in ourselves that we either don't know how to help our child or we didn't notice it once we do learn about what is actually going on. And it was so automatic for me because of the way that I was raised to want to just yell at him at the start. And I'm like, whoa, this is what I'm taught. I teach that punishment isn't the answer. We need to do other things. This isn't his fault. It's the executive functioning. This is not a kid, a turtle. Well, any of the kids, they're really not misbehaving because they want to get into trouble. They're not misbehaving because they want to be bad. They're misbehaving because parts of their brain are struggling. And so weirdly, as I'm want to yell at him, and I'm sitting here thinking, no, I should go by this other side of parenting. But there's this part of me that is saying, but somebody is going to judge you. There was nobody else in the room with me. And even though there was nobody else in the room with me, I was worried about being judged for not moving to the normal style of parenting that I was brought up with and using the style of parenting that I know that I teach, that I always use with my kids. In this one situation, for some reason, I was being dominated by that other side. And I know the root. I know that defaulting to punishment instead of understanding where the mistakes are coming from is not going to help him. And I knew, though, that we needed to set some boundaries up and have some compassion. So we talked about it and we realized that one of the struggles that he was having, just one, was Pokemon. Him and his brother, when his brother's work was done, he was stopping his work and they were starting to play Pokemon games with the card games. So I wanted to at first just take away his cards. We talked about it. And he's the one that said, I think that we should put my cards away while I'm doing my work and put them where you are. And I have to show you my work before I get the cards to play with him. And I was like, that's a great idea. And I initially wanted to also stop him from being able to go to Pokemon on Thursday nights with all of his friends. But I was like, no, that's his social. That is his social outlet. Those are his friends. Those are his people. That's his decompression. That is not going to help him have the energy, the bandwidth, the will, and the want to practice his schoolwork during the day, which is not when the Pokemon tournament happens on Thursday night. So I'm like, you can still go to Pokemon. That has nothing to do with it. This just means that we need to work on these skills the other days. So I got to that section with it. But then I realized something else that I was doing is that I teach this all the time, that in my mind, I skipped all these steps of the things that we needed to do. I was like, okay, let's just start working on this, this, and this tomorrow. I didn't stop and see exactly where he was struggling, exactly how far down on the learning ladder he was. So a learning ladder is, where is that child learning? Where are they really, really, really struggling? So my goal is for him to do his work in a timely manner, double check it, make sure that he checks it properly and fixes his mistakes. So it's one thing to check it, another thing to fix it, that he is starting his work when he needs to start it. Like, all of these things were all of my like goals. And I started working on them all at once. I started working high level. I started working on not the base foundational skills. I was working on the higher level skills. And I had to stop myself after a week of realizing, why is he not making progress? Why are we still struggling? I'm like, oh my God, I skipped steps. This is what I teach all the time. I skipped the steps. And there's part of me too that was like, well, I teach this. Well, I know this. So he can go further ahead, and he can't. The challenge of helping your own child is harder. Like, you want to fast forward to the solution. Whereas when I'm working with clients one-on-one, I truly am going at the pace of the client. I'm going at the pace of the child. I'm going at the pace that this child needs. And with my own son, I fast-tracked it, right? It's so hard to do because as a parent, we don't have time to continue working on these things all of the time. We want to get to the end goal so that they can just be self-sufficient with their homework and get all of their stuff done without needing me as often, because I have other things to do. That's just life of a parent. And I had to stop and go, okay, no, you need to stop and think about this. You need to set aside time every single day to go over this with him and help him and move at the steps at a pace that works for him, or he's actually never going to get at his goal. And he's always going to struggle with his work. And you're never going to get there if you don't stop and slow down and pull back, understand exactly where he is struggling, where down on the skill set level is he struggling, and start working on the lowest base foundational skill set and start working up from there. Oh my God, it's so hard to do as a parent. When I'm working with somebody, I can break it down. I can have a plan. I can keep working at this plan. But when it's my own child and I'm sitting there thinking, but I want them at the end goal now, it's hard. So I want you to know that when you are working with your kids, like, it's not as easy as when somebody else is doing the work with your child. So go in when you are helping your child with the sense and understanding of knowing that you need to give yourself some grace, give yourself more time and a buffer than you feel that it's going to take, and start trying to actually take some steps back and help them from a lower base level. I mean, this is all stuff that I teach in the support circle and I help other parents with all the time. This is what I do when I work one-on-one with a client. And it is hard to do when you're the one that's leading the ship. And it's hard too when they are in school. And when schools are built around due dates and compliance, it's hard to actually stop the academic and help them learn these skills like self-monitoring, initiation, planning, prioritizing, all of these things, when they might actually not do as well on an assignment, or they might fail something. And that's where we have to sometimes start looking through a different lens of, okay, what's the priority? The priority is maybe looking at that assignment they did, and congratulate your child for the things that they did work on that learning ladder, and let them know this isn't about your grade. This isn't, it depends on what grade they're in too. So when I'm working with somebody in high school or college, it is a little bit of a different approach than when it is middle school and high school. If they do get slightly lower grades in middle school and high school, but we're actually building up skills that are going to help them in high school and college, then that's very different than somebody that's in high school and these grades need to count. Sometimes they will have a chat with a parent about like, okay, how important is it for them to pass this versus us working on these other skills at this moment so that they can start passing everything. We have to sometimes stop and look at it from a very different lens, a very different perspective from the way society is saying that things should be going for every child in every grade. And this could even be a kid that's like friggin' academically high, but struggling to plan and do their homework and hand it in and show their work. We might need to get some lower grades, understanding the child academically knows the information, but can't get it on paper the way that the teacher wants. And we need to work on that slowly as the school year goes and see the progress in that, instead of saying, but this kid academically knows the stuff. I mean, this is one of my kids with math, can't get the information down on paper the way that a school needs it. So we're slowly working on that. And I know though that academically he's way ahead. So he's doing other stuff on the side to help with the academic part. But I'm not marking it because I know, because he's doing it in a different way than the school system wants it. the way that his brain works. And we're slowly working on helping his brain be able to get the stuff down on paper. All of the stuff, it's like, I really felt like a failure. I messed up. Even though I know the steps, I screwed up the steps, right? We all do this. We all do this as parents. And it's not a linear line of, hey, I know what I'm doing and it's going to all go great. Your child's going to have emotions too, especially like we have those big emotions and the yelling and outbursts of the kids with big emotions, and we know what they're feeling in the moment. But when it's a turtle, when that child is a turtle, it is hard to know what they're thinking, what they're feeling at times. And sometimes you need to start going super duper slow just to help them be able to speak up and have a voice and feel confident in what they're answering, to help start and get them out of turtle and back into dolphin to do the work. So what changed with my son? What things did we work at? We slowed down a lot to build up the skills that mattered. For us, it was breaking down assignments into manageable chunks. And I'm going to tell you, the first time we broke it into chunks, it still wasn't small enough chunks that we had to break it down more and then more until he was able to work through it. I added more check-ins and review time to go back over skipped steps. I had to step away from what I was doing in the office more often during the day and go in and do more frequent check-ins with him. We started building routines around checking his own work and preparing for quizzes and regulating his efforts across subjects. We even discovered today, he went through a math and he got everything except for the very last question. I'm like, which is amazing. He went in, he self-corrected, he made sure that his mistakes were all fixed. He got all the questions answered. The last one though, he did write in it, I'm not sure how to solve this. And I'm like, well, if you don't know how to solve it, why don't we dive into it and figure out how to solve it? But it was the last question and he was done. So I said, why don't we on one day go from front to back on the questions? Because this is a luxury you don't have in other schools. In school is he knew that he had this, it was due on Saturday, but he started it on Wednesday. So then he was able to go the next day and correct himself, and he went front to back. And I said, what if the next day you did back to front? Because you're going into a fresh eyes on the last question, and we would have been able to catch that and he would have been able to fix it. So is that kind of cheating in the sense of the way that schools do it? Yes, it is. Same time, if he was to do it the way that school was asking him, it would be too many steps too quick for his abilities at this moment. That what we're doing is we're spreading it over 3 days, and then we can spread it over 2 over time and bring it into it being 1 and in the moment. So I'm not necessarily worried about the actual academic mark at this moment. He's middle school. I don't need to submit his marks for high school to be getting into college yet. So in my mind, that doesn't matter. And what I'm doing is working on him learning how to correct, self-monitor himself throughout a test at a pace that works for him. And then I'm slowing it down. So if you were in school, it could even be that a teacher hands it to him one day and has him do it. And the teacher puts aside the test, and the next day they set aside some time for them to go through and correct it themselves. And then the next day asks them to go backwards correcting it. And then she marks it. And that is if they are able to self-monitor and self-correct. So it depends on what their struggle is. Some teachers will do this if you help them understand and explain what's happening and how the goal is from the start of the year to the end of the year, of where you want them to be able to do all the steps at once in the class when the test is happening. It's one of those things where it's important to, if the teacher's on board, but also how you approach this with the teachers. And I've had some teachers that have totally been on board with this for certain kids when we help to explain what is happening and what part of the brain we're actually working on, when the teacher knows the academic is there and it's not, and it's the other side. When it is the academic is being affected as well by the executive functionings, then we go in with a different explanation and help the teacher understanding of what that child does need. And it's so different with each child. So please don't go based on this one example that should be across the board for every child. This is just my child and what he needed and the one skill that we were working on with him. We still have other skills that we're building on. That was just the first one that we were working on and tackling. So there's big shifts. It really is a big shift for us in seeing the school not as academic, but as a training ground for executive functioning. And if you can do that, especially in elementary and middle school, then it's so much easier for the kids when they're in high school. But if they're already in high school or college, and I mean college, university, if they are in college, university, and you're seeing that you're now learning about these executive functioning struggles, and you're seeing that they're struggling with them, you can help them in high school and college. I love working with those kids. You can definitely help them with those skills and tools once they're in there. But if you do have a child that is younger, then definitely get it in the elementary, middle school, before the high school college, because it's different. There's less pressures there in the elementary middle than in the high school and the college setting on the things that are being thrown at them. So one of the things as well with my son that has been helping as well is we've been testing this tool by Amishi Jha. Amishi Jha is a focus and attention neuroscientist. Her book, Peak Minds, phenomenal. Here, I'm going to write that down, Peak Minds, so that I put it in the show notes. So with Peak Minds, it is just such a good book. And she has some strategies in there to help you actually clear the whiteboard of your mind to help you with focus. And my son's been doing it and it's been helping. It's really good. So that's another tool that we've been adding in as well. And that is a tool as well that I also am building out a module now that I've tested out with my son and tested it with some of my clients and myself and some friends, that I'm building that out now into the support circle so that everybody in my support circle will be having that as well. So to recap on what we did talk about, being that quote unquote good kid doesn't mean there aren't struggles. And especially if that good kid is actually in a stressed state of a turtle, of which we often don't associate those kids with bad behaviors when it is actually that their stress system is taxed and they're shutting down. Executive functioning and emotional regulation, in my opinion, matters more than the grades, because once we can support those two things, then the grades usually start increasing on their own because the child is able to learn and execute the academic requirements that are being asked of them because their stress system can handle things and their executive functioning system is doing what it needs to do to be able to take in the information and process it and plan it and organize it and execute it the way that the school is asking of them. And we must parent from the present moment, not from past wounds. I know when that was coming up for me, I'm like, ooh, this is just how we were raised. And those are all past history, past information in us. And it is very important for us to start changing as all of this new research and insights go on about how we should be raising our kids in order to help them thrive and survive in the world that we do live in now. If you have defaulted to yelling, punishment, or skipping steps, know that you're not alone. This is the norm. This is the most common way of parenting still, that if you do switch over to the other side, it'll take you a while to adjust and be there. And just with me, even though I teach this, I had a moment where I was thinking, oh, someone's going to judge me if I don't punish this child, or I really should punish this child because of what he did, when in fact, we've switched to the non-punishment style and it's been amazing seeing the difference in the change in him. He's happier. He's less stressed doing his work. He's not as quiet, which is him coming out of turtle and more into dolphin. And the final takeaway I really do hope that you get from this is that helping our kids succeed isn't about doing more faster. It's about seeing what's really going on and meeting them where they are at. So if you would like to figure out how to help your child or what your child needs the school might be missing, you can do one of two things. One is that I have a self-assessment form that I'm going to put the link to. So I'm going to put that in the show notes. So you can go through that self-assessment form, which is going to ask you a series of questions that the school would not relate to some of the behaviors that kids have if they're turtling or if they are having outbursts. And we can start relating those back to executive functioning struggles and ways to actually be supporting our kids. And the other way is that, well, there's actually more than another way, is you can join my support circle, where I do have a lot of lessons on all of the things that I've spoke about today. I answer questions for you you can write them in text anytime that you think of the question, and I answer it when I'm in the office. And then I also have a weekly call live where you can hop on and ask me questions as well. So we have that, which the link is in the show note. And then I also do work with clients one-on-one, of which you can book a call with me to ask me any questions to see if I'd be a good fit to help your child. And that link for the book a call to talk to me about one-on-ones is in the show notes. All right, that is it for today's episode. I will see you in the next episode.